Let's take a look around the Big 12 here for week 13. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, tell your friends, and consider joining the channel for just $2.99 as well. First game up, we just got done talking about it in our main podcast here. K-State wins 41-15 to move to 8-3, still mathematically in it for the Big 12 championship. Joe, your thoughts really quickly again on K-State getting a big win at home, going up 27-3 at halftime and eventually winning 41-15.
Just feels right. Music to my ears. You get the job done. You are the superior cat in this situation. Shout out to the Bearcat fans that only showed up with Cats merch, not realizing that it's cats on cats. But yeah, man, a good time to be a Wildcat. This is a great game, a feel-good thing all around, and the boys are back. They're playing some good ball, and I'm stoked for next week as well.
You got to cue the boys are back in town. The boys are back in town.
Let me hear that falsetto, Kenny. Let me hear that falsetto.
Back in town.
Kenny, you were at the game with your family?
What's that?
Kenny, you were at the game with the family. Really quickly again, your thoughts on the game overall. I think you were pretty happy.
It's about damn time that we come out firing away the way we did. That's my thoughts, and I'm glad that it's looking like we're this is the K-State that we all wanted from the get-go. This is the K-State that all the fans were expecting from the get-go. And this is the K-State that I want to see every single game next year. And as well as finishing out this year, of course. Of course.
I thought K-State played really well. I'd probably give it like a B plus game. I had some questions about the play calling in the second half. I think guys kind of relaxed a little bit. I mean, K-State didn't have 200 passing yards, but overall, I mean, when K-State has almost 300 rushing yards, you got to be pretty happy. When K-State wins by 4 scores, you got to be pretty happy. And I'm very happy to see K-State finally get back in the win column. It feels like it's been forever. I think like a month at this point. DJ Giddens is running the ball, 182 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Avery Johnson, he is only 5 touchdown passes away, I think, from tying the school record. So, which is crazy to think about considering it's his first year as a starter, new OC, a lot of new guys in the O-line as well. But man, I mean, K-State looked pretty darn good, and I'm excited. I'm very excited for Farmageddon. Kenny, my wife said you can come over. I just have to put up the Christmas lights first.
Yeah, I just want to touch on this really quick. It's just one thing I want to say, and we'll move on to the next game, is that it finally looks like the O-line got their head out of you-know-what. I mean, they look like they actually were playing the game of football and they were owning the line of scrimmage, which is where we needed them to. We needed the game to be won in the trenches. I mean, clearly. And it's been a struggle bus for the last month on that end. And it's good to see that we finally get the dub in a very comfortable way. So
love it. And I love that we got a touchdown catch for the senior Will Swanson as well on 4th down too. Beautiful play call. Moving on. Ooh, BYU, what is going on, man? 0-2 in your last 2 games. Kenny, I want to hear the props from you because you picked BYU. Who did I pick, Kenny? Let me hear it.
You did say Arizona State.
Thank you.
Did call for Arizona State.
A month, I picked them to win. And they won. They went up, 21-3, 21-0. They did let BYU come back. They almost let BYU win the game, but they didn't, Kenny. Arizona State gets a win, 28-23. Their fans rushed the field. It was a great game for the Big 12. It really was.
Dude, I got to throw it to Joe on this, man. It's so wild. This is crazy.
I mean, it's so nice they rushed the field twice. I mean, it was a situation where you had, half a second left, it felt like. That was the most crazy ending of any college football game I've seen in a long, long time. I mean, so much so you can't get the fans off the field. You've got them packed around the field at that point. Yeah, what a game. What an outcome. With BYU, you're sitting there after going 9-0, and then you go 0-2 down the stretch, and you're sitting here with a real chance of not playing a conference championship game. That's a wildly disappointing switch, but I think they get the job done next week. The tiebreakers are always going to be insane, so we'll have to see what happens. But, man, Kenny Dillingham is a coach's coach, a player's coach. Everybody in the nation should want that man as their head coach. He is a super smart dude. And you can see why they're so good. I mean, Sam Levitt, those dudes have the perfect relationship back and forth. So Arizona State being good now, I mean, early on it surprised me. Does not surprise me a single bit now.
Man, what I want to say is it was a great game. Obviously, the crowd was super involved. I mean, this is probably the most hype that Arizona State's been in a while. And they should be excited. They should definitely be excited that their team is, they're leading the Big 12 right now. It's in their hands. Arizona State and Iowa State, they are in the driver's seat. As Steve texted me, it's completely how they come into next week and how they play in their games next week. And again, hats off to Stevie for calling this a month ago. He did say that BYU was going to, if they won or whatever, then they were going to lose this game or something. If they beat KU, I think that
they don't need to know that, Kenny. They don't need to know that, Kenny. They just need to know that I picked Arizona State to win. Arizona State fans, I got a lot of faith in your team. I got a lot of respect for you guys. After you came into Manhattan and just honestly beat the crap out of K-State. I mean, they did. I mean, despite the fact that Cam Scatterby had less than 100 yards against K-State, Sam Levitt was a dog in that game. He really was. But this week, they went back to Cam Scatterby, almost 150 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. That guy's going to play in the league. He's a great running back.
It's something that we were kind of worried about with BYU because they struggled. Even the games that they were winning, they were struggling. We saw that. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if they struggled against Utah. They struggled against Oklahoma State. They lost to KU. It's like this was a downward trend. It's almost like the magic powder, the magic seasoning wasn't in their locker room these last couple of weeks. I mean, a couple of games that went their way, the Utah, the flag heard around the world, and then you've got you've got the KU game, of course, and then this game, the crowd heard around the world, the crowd is storming. I mean, they had to put the field goal post back up because they took it down. It just was so crazy, and then it all ended up being a couple yards shy of a touchdown because he did end up catching that Hail Mary. I just still can't believe it was that close. But hats off to Arizona State. What do they say? Forks up, right? I mean, you guys definitely deserve it. Kenny Dillingham not only has the best first name in the world, but he should quite literally be up for Coach of the Year. I mean, if he's not in high consideration, I don't know who else would be.
I feel like he should win it, but I feel like Coach Prime is going to win it for 2 reasons. Number one, his name is huge. And number 2, because they have a great quarterback as well, Travis Hunter as well. There's a lot of star power with that team. Right. And they did go 4-8 last year, but I do agree. I think Kenny Dillingham should win it. Joe, I want to ask you this question. Was this the best game in the Big 12 this season? Because it feels like there's been a lot of really, really, really good games. Is this the best one this season?
Man, that's hard. I think when BYU and Iowa State were on that undefeated stretch, where they both in the same week came down to game-winning drives with 7 seconds left getting in the end zone. I think it was
UCF, Iowa State, and then BYU and Oklahoma State.
Granted, UCF and Oklahoma State aren't that great, but oh my goodness, down the stretch, that's crazy. This game, there's just so much more pressure. There's so much more. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's so much more about this game right now. But I'd probably lean back on the former in that because I do think that, it wasn't necessarily peak BYU you've seen. I thought the K-State Colorado game was incredible too. So there's a lot of stuff that I could put in contention. It's definitely a top 5 game.
I agree. I think it's a top 5 game as well. It's one of them. I feel like what might set it apart from a few others and raise it up is the fact that it's later in the season. The implications are crazy. I mean, honestly, this felt like an elimination game. Whoever lost is probably not going to Arlington. And we'll talk about that in our next segment. But man, this was a really, really good game. And shout out to Arizona State for getting up to 9-2, man. 9 wins this season, Kenny.
I'd like to throw a game in the ring, my hat in the ring. If this game was actually this week, Baylor versus Colorado, that game would have been insane.
I agree. That's crazy to think about, man, because Baylor's gotten so much better since then, and Colorado is obviously very good as well, man. That's a really, really good take there, man. It really is.
Yep.
Good win, Arizona State. Actually, that's a great segue, Kenny, because you just got done talking about Colorado here. Both of us picked them to win this game, but I think both of us kind of felt like KU could possibly still pull the upset. But man, they're giant killers. What are they? I saw this stat. It was first time
the first
that
team ever in.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the first time in FBS history that a team with a losing record has beaten 3 ranked teams in a row.
It's crazy.
Why does it have to be KU?
Yeah, look, I want to tell a quick story because I think this is true. I want to click on the box score here really quickly. KU has a punter who's from Australia. His family flew up to watch him play on senior day. How many times do you guys think he punted?
Let me guess, 0.
0 punts. They came
Zero.
all the way from Australia to watch him stand on the sidelines. Shout out to Colorado's defense for never getting a stop in this game, man.
Yeah.
Colorado, what happened, man? What happened, dude? Joe, what did you think of this game?
Man, I got to say it. I was in on Kansas for this one. I didn't think Colorado's winning this game. I know they're a damn good football team or a darn good football team, but you get to a point where it's like you look at the teams, Kansas is tailor-made to beat Colorado. Their run game is so hard to stop. They're creative offensively. Their secondary, obviously, I think it's a top 2, top 3 unit in the Big 12, and Colorado's receivers are incredible. This is the team that will go toe-to-toe with you. Like, Colorado, if you want to win this game, you run the football because KU can't stop anybody. They couldn't. They just cannot run the football. Like, they cannot to a T. And I get the idea of, like, you've got the best player in college football in Travis Hunter, but KU is, like, tailor-made to beat him. Devin Neal has a field day in this game. I mean, dang near 300 total yards of offense in this game. The dude put up a ton. Just a talented dude and a talented team. I know they stunk for the first 6 weeks, but that's got to just be some mental, some coaching thing where it's like, whatever it is, we're a good enough team to win. We just don't have the right mentality in the locker room. But you kind of felt down the stretch that this team's figured out who they are. I think they beat Baylor next week. I think they're bowl bound here soon.
For me, it was I didn't want to pick KU to win. I think it was just more of me being salty about that team, and because of the fact that because we lost to Arizona State and our chances were basically almost out of reach. I mean, we've been sort of flirting with the phrase, we can still have a chance all podcast long, but technically we can still have a chance. But I didn't think it was even possible for this scenario to play out the way it did. But now that KU has actually, basically ruined the Big 12, I remember seeing a quote that, because KU season went to hell, they're going to bring the whole Big 12 down with them. And they've been pretty successful in that, just taking down all the giants, the giant slayers of the conference. I mean, KU gets it done in pretty dominant fashion. And they're always like Jalen Daniels. I mean, he's sort of like that guy that just goes for the big explosive play, and they're an explosive play kind of team. And it just, the coin just kept hitting heads for them. And so it's wild, KU. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it, but it is. What do you say, Steve? I mean, like, Colorado, you guys dropped the ball.
I got some stuff to say. So all Colorado fans, which, by the way, thank you guys so much for watching and commenting and giving us crap. I appreciate that. I'm probably going to be called a CU hater from Mike Smith 3835 for this. Shout out to that commenter. But we heard all week about how good their run defense was and how good they were ever since the K-State game and all of that. And, Joe hit it right on the head, man. They could not stop KU's run game. 37 carries for Devin Neal. 37 carries for Devin Neal, 207 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. And yeah, I mean, that offense is, it's a crazy fun offense to watch as long as you're not playing against it. But when you are, my God, it can be very frustrating. They were doing all sorts of stuff. And, one other thing I want to say is that Jalen Daniels went through senior night. So it kind of feels like he's probably going to hit the portal next year, kind of do what Will Howard did and try to make some money, play for a bigger school possibly. Because honestly, all the big players for KU are leaving. So it makes sense. But this is a big win for KU. Big loss for Colorado too, because like you said earlier, man, Arizona State and Iowa State are really in the driver's seat. If they win next week, they're in. BYU and Colorado are out. And you did a whole video, Kenny, 1,100 views on it just from like 2 or 3 days ago about all the chaos in the Big 12 and how important it was for Colorado to win this game. And they did not win, Kenny.
Yeah, I said if you guys win, you're in the best spot. If you lose, it puts you in quite literally the worst position to get to a path to, to win or to get to Arlington. And if you guys haven't seen that video, please go check it out. I think it's titled Big 12 title worst case scenarios. But you kind of already hit on Iowa State, being in the driver's seat. And I think we should just move right along. I mean, we've put enough salt on the wound for Colorado. They're going to be talking about the whole, I say, well, actually, hold on, Steve. Scroll right back up. I know a lot of Colorado fans are going to be talking about the crazy, knee tackle. I've seen so many comments about how dirty that tackle was on Shedeur. But did you see Shedeur shoving 2 refs? How in the world do you get away with that? That's crazy. I've seen those videos on YouTube where like the crazy ejections or whatever. And that's when somebody like just says something to the ref that's a little off. He like ejected from the game. I've even seen some where they shove the ref or whatever and he gets thrown out of the game. He shoved 2 refs and he's still in the game. I was like, whoa, how does that happen? How in the world? Joe, did you see that?
I didn't see that, but my brain always goes back to Shiloh, where I'm like, man, that was a really dirty hit. I'll give it to you. 100% dirty hit. Guy could have been ejected very easily. But you also have a dude that's a human missile himself that's just like, anytime anyone's running too high, he's going straight for the legs. Like, Shiloh Sanders isn't like the exact make and model of consistency when it comes to player safety. So you kind of get a little bit of the, dude, it's football. It sucks, and it's dirty hit. You can't eliminate that from football. You got to move on. Yes, it should have been flagged. Didn't they pick up the flag on that, I think?
No. It was. I'm talking about the KU defender that, like, when Shedeur threw the ball, he came in and came right in and took out Shedeur's legs or whatever. Yeah. And Brooklyn boy. I mean, he's our our resident Colorado fan. He's watching this game really closely. Yeah, the frustration when the D line was piling on him. There was a couple times where the guy was being shoved. And when the play's still going on and the O line's like still doing their blocks and then they throw the defender and then he falls over and it seems like, oh man, all these guys are falling on me, taking extra hits or whatever. And like when you got a dog pile, it is what it is. But yeah, Shedeur definitely lost his cool there and shoved a couple refs. I was like, dang, dude, how do you get away with that? I mean, hey, lucky for him, he's still in the game, and he doesn't, have to miss a half of the Oklahoma State game because that would be so bad for that team if he had to miss a whole half for that. Oh my God.
I feel like with Colorado, and you can date it back to the K-State game, but like I feel like the refs have a different mentality. Not like this isn't to sound like either team gets the preferential treatment, but they have a different mindset when it comes to handling like the back and forth. Like there's a clip of Travis Hunter pushing with one of the Cincinnati defenders a while back, and they just kind of like get into it. It's cool. Refs don't come over and get too out of pocket. But like you've seen some of that with the K-State game where it's like dude will score and it's immediately, hey, get back to your sideline. Don't taunt. Don't like Jace Brown was getting. Granted, Jace Brown's being Jace Brown, he's being a receiver, but like there is so much of a quicker reaction. I feel like in the Colorado games where they try to sniff out like, hey, don't elevate this. And I feel like KU fits that mold of like dudes that are really chirpy, I guess the best way to say it. And obviously it's outside looking in, but you get like Kobe Bryant, who's really vocal. And that is like tailor-made for that type of style of football for both teams. Colorado and KU both fit that like who's going to maybe not out petty, but like they have a little bit of that mentality. So
mind game.
To see that. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Both dudes have that. Both teams have that for sure.
Trying to get that little edge, always trying to get the edge over, and hey, that's just football, I mean, it's a physical game. All right. And I'll just say that, like dirty hits are going to happen all the time. And, if they get called, they get called and it makes sense. But if they don't get called, then it is what it is. But
we do need to move on here, Kenny. Let's move on. Iowa State gets a big win at Utah. And Utah fans, where's all this trash talk now, man? You guys saw you'd run the Big 12. Thought you go undefeated. And what happens? You guys miss a bowl game, losing at home 31-28. Your kicker misses the game tying field goal. Kenny, I think you said you thought it was actually better for the Big 12 if Iowa State lost. Is that right?
No. Well,
I thought I thought this is what you said last time when I was talking to you about it.
Well, it was like if Iowa State loses and Colorado and BU won, then it would clinch the Big 12 playoff game or clinch the Big 12 title game. It would instantly be BYU and Colorado if Iowa State lost to Utah. But because everyone lost and Iowa State won, now we're in the doomsday scenario where we could have 4, 7-2 teams, or even all the way to like 8, 6-3 teams. I mean, that's where we're at now, which is absurd to even think about. But that's where we're at in the Big 12. That's why it's the best conference.
Joe, does this game, like, how do you feel about this game for K-State, like, for next week? Like, does this give you more hope or less hope for K-State winning Farmageddon here in 2024 following Iowa State's 31-28 win at Utah?
It definitely gives me more hope, but I wouldn't say it makes me feel much different than I did going into the week. I think it's more so what K-State did in their game. But with Iowa State, like, they've got some defensive injuries that are issues. There's no running from that. Their quarterback play, I mean, Rocco Beck, I think, has been a stud, but he's also had his young moments where it's like, man, what are we doing? And you saw that earlier, the pick six against Utah. Like, I don't know that I feel about Iowa State the same way I would trying to play against BYU or Colorado or Arizona State again. Like, Iowa State is kind of in this bracket, and granted, we're probably in a similar bracket where it's like you literally have no idea what you're going to get. This could be a playoff contending team, or it could be a team that, you know, makes a bowl game at 6-6. I feel more about the latter right now, but I think K-State, I think I saw it was like a 2-point favorite for Iowa State in Ames for the early line, and I was like, man, I almost feel like K-State wins this game outright, but we'll see what happens there. But I feel pretty good about our chances, especially like with last year. That is what planted the seeds for this game. You have so much more motivation. Like, same way you lost on senior night, it also helps now that you get to get revenge for senior night this week and then Iowa State next week. And then there's a lot of other stuff with that, but I feel pretty good about it.
Well, and also to hit on a little bit of that game, because you're looking forward a little bit, Iowa State is like ranked 15th out of 16 teams in the rush defense. And what does K-State like to do? You just saw it on full display yesterday. We like to run the ball, and we're pretty dang good at it. And so Iowa State's not really geared to stop what we are really good at doing best. So they're going to have their hands full for sure with all the threats that we have. And with the injuries that you just talked about, I mean, it's like, well, what do you do? You know, what do you do when K-State's rolling into town? But with Iowa State and Utah, you know, Utah, what did they lose, like 7 in a row now? Like, this is 7 straight losses. I don't think I think I saw a stat that said the last time that's happened was 38 years ago or something like that, which is wild. That is so wild. That's older. That record's older than I am. Okay. So that's pretty insane. Iowa State, they are in position to finally break their school record for the first time ever, getting 10 wins in the regular season.
I called it weeks ago. They're going to do it. It wasn't
Wow.
like a big call or anything, but
no faith, Steve. You got no faith in the Cats.
I said it weeks ago. I'm not saying it's going to happen this week. I called it when they're undefeated. Hopefully it happens for them in the bowl game. But yeah. I agree with what you guys are saying. Actually, I honestly feel like Iowa State is not going to be able to stop K-State's running game, and K-State's going to have a really difficult time stopping Iowa State's passing game. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. I really do. Speaking of high-scoring games,
you got two. You got two coming up.
We got 2 coming up. I don't want to spend too much time on either one. TCU wins big 49-28 against Arizona. It almost feels like the Arizona Wildcats have given up, Joe. It really does.
I think they kind of have. I don't think there's any way around that. I think next week they're going to have the most energy they've had since, week 3 against K-State. Like, there's not a ton of juice there anymore. I think a lot of the guys have already turned their back on Brent Brennan. Could it fix itself? Sure. But that $10 million buyout is not looking too good, I will say. I don't think Arizona has much juice. I don't think they have the energy. This is another example of that. TCU is a team where I never know what to think of TCU. I don't think they're very good, but somehow they win games more than I think. So they're better than I think. They're kind of like a 6 out of 10 in my mind consistently. But with Arizona, it's just beating a dead horse at this point, fellas. We got to just simulate the last week, get to practice. You know what I mean? Let's figure this out. It doesn't feel like they're trending in the right direction by any means.
TCU, what a turnaround from the beginning of the season with that horrendous loss to UCF. And, you know, all the other games that they had. I can't remember all of them, but
they gave up 66 to SMU and they also lost
Houston
at
got
home.
him.
They lost at home to Houston. So yeah, this is a great turnaround for them and Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, trying to keep their coach alive. I mean, it's them, Texas Tech, West Virginia. They're all trying to keep their coach in the position to, and Baylor too. And all those teams are doing such a good job of making sure their coach stays. But yeah, congratulations TCU on a big win. You and I both called this, man. Like Arizona just has not been that team this year. It's embarrassing. But in order for K-State to make it to the title game, we have to have Arizona create a miracle and beat their in-state rival next week. I don't know if that's possible, but
it's not going to happen. But hopefully they're more motivated than they were this week because they did not look motivated at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
T-Mac legacy game.
That's right.
I love T-Mac. He's going to be great in the NFL. A couple more games, man. It feels like there's so many games here. Let's try to move through these pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
This is a really high-scoring game. This is a typical Big 12 game. Oklahoma State was throwing everything out. Like the whole kitchen sink was out there. Ollie Gordon, 3 touchdowns, even threw the ball as well on a trick play. It was really fun game to watch, but Texas Tech comes out with the win, 56-48, Kenny.
104. Who had the over on the 104 there?
You hate to bet the under in that one.
Yeah, you have to bet the over when Texas Tech is playing. You just have to bet the over.
Crazy how high scoring this is. But little bit of life in Oklahoma State's offense, which has been abysmal. But Texas Tech again, they're just that team that's just gonna have a high scoring game every single week. It seems like, and hats off to them for coming out with a dub here in this crazy shootout. It looks like, I mean, it was just back and forth all game long, but Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, Mahomes' alma mater, comes out with a dub.
Hey, the Alan Bowman Bowl.
Oh, you're right. That's right. Yeah.
Bowman.
Yep.
Shout out Alan Bowman.
That guy's as old as I am, and I'm 37. So
that dude, as a personality, that dude rocks, man. He is so funny. Just isn't quite working out on the football field. So one day he's gonna have a killer personality. He's like a barstool dude. I'm a team Alan Bowman guy for that second career to kick off.
He's gonna be like Will Compton out there at Barstool. So
good.
Moving on here, we picked West Virginia to win this game.
Yep.
Easy.
The reason why, because West Virginia is good at stopping the run, and UCF, that's all they really got.
They cannot throw a forward pass. They cannot throw a forward pass. I mean, Dylan Risk is better than their other quarterbacks, but man, I mean, they played 4 quarterbacks at this point in the season. So
right,
crazy.
And I mean, he did throw for 172 yards. My guess is he probably just threw to RJ Harvey and he would just run, So I think it's, West Virginia, they're a solid team. We call them the gatekeepers on KSU Nation. They're right there in the middle of the pack. So they're doing what they do best, and they're beating the teams that they ought to beat and losing to the teams they ought to lose to. So they're still gatekeeper.
They're still mathematically in it to go to Arlington, Joe. Yeah. They're still in it, Joe.
There's a scenario where if we have 7, 6, and 3 teams, it's West Virginia versus K-State.
Dude, insane. That would be such a disappointing championship game for everybody that's not a K-State fan.
Yeah,
I think, Neil Brown wins the games he's supposed to, loses the games he's also supposed to. So it fits that mold as well. So Neil Brown gets a dub when he's expected to.
Yes, sir. Moving on here. Last game, Baylor gets a win 20-10 at Houston. I think this is just more frustration for K-State fans because Houston hasn't won a game since beating K-State, and they don't look good on offense. They scored 3 points on offense. They had a pick 6. But, man, I guess if you're looking on the other side, Baylor's look pretty good. They have, and they honestly should be 8-3 and 6-2 in the Big 12 and right in the mix. But, man, Dave Aranda's really figured out something for his Baylor Bears, Kenny. He really has.
Yeah, again, Houston making its living on defense. You would think that Baylor would put up a little bit more points on this, but, again, Baylor's coming up huge. Houston is ahead of schedule, man. They are so ahead of schedule with their team, and they're going to – that's kind of been the storyline for their team this year is that no one ever thought that they would get as many wins as they have already. And they're just, and not only that, but the teams they got it from nonetheless, so it's just, it's frustrating. Yeah, Steve, you said it, they're finding ways to lose a lot of their games now, but too bad they couldn't do it against K-State. They had to beat us that game. They just had to win.
That feels
game.
like it was more K-State losing than Houston winning to me, but
Of course.
that's neither here or there. So
Of course.
Yeah, I agree. I think Willie Fritz can coach. I mean, plain and simple, that dude's a good football coach. How long he'll be in Houston, I'm not too sure. I know he's kind of an older dude. But realistically, when they get firing on all cylinders, you get some veteran dudes in that room, they're going to be a good football team 2 or 3 years from now. But Baylor, yeah, I was not a Dave Aranda truther. I was not. And I don't know. I mean, I still probably wouldn't call myself a Dave Aranda guy, but I do think that he's had such a nice bounce back to relevance. And I feel like Baylor has like positive juice for the first time in 2 years.
I agree. And that's a look around at Big 12 for week 13.